Welcome to the episode 2 recap. This episode might be the most entertaining episode you'll get for a while. Now, episode 1 had stuff going all over the place. Honestly, I can't even form an opinion about episode 1 because it is the very first episode. It's the introductory episode. Episode 2 is where things get serious, actually. I really liked episode 2, which is why I'm doing this recap. Now, episode 3 and episode 4, I have mixed feelings for, but episode 2 has to have the most goated cast of all. I think the events that happen in episode 2 are just amazing. In my opinion, the best episode. So once again, I'm going to recap it, hopefully go through some lore that you may or may have not missed. And yeah, time to do my job. So the story starts really simple. Strays kills Rekos. Now, in case you don't know who Rekos is, it's basically his god. And if that wasn't obvious, that's how he got his title, God Killer. Anyways, so prior to coming to Sidonia, this man just spawns in Eureka, which is episode 3, presses S2, I guess. And then after pressing S2, he enters a Chaos Gate and just regenerates his power. And in that time, he spawns in Sidonia, so he's like, you know what, screw it. I'm gonna destroy Sidonia. Now, that is not the truth. Fastus deployed him in Eureka, searching for a Prima star. Couldn't find it, so he deployed Strays in Sidonia. Couldn't find it, so more on that later. So I'm aware that Luluka, Lilibet, and Rowana have their own events. If I'm misremembering, Rowana and Luluka might have the same exact event, and I'm just misremembering. Anyways, Kawarik's first introduction into the story is through Eulogy for a Saint, which is total bullshit, because Eulogy for a Saint is the prequel of the game. It literally happens before episode 1, and the only way for you as a reader to read Eulogy for a Saint is after you complete episode 2. Now, episode 2, you meet Kawarik for the first time. Actually, no, that's wrong. You meet Kawarik in the Reputations, but you meet him after Eulogy for a Saint happens. So what happened in Eulogy for a Saint? So basically, the Church of the Goddess took Kawarik, turned him into this magic-killing machine, and after the Archdemon War has been concluded in Eulogy for a Saint, they tried to dispose of Kawarik. And the fact they tried to dispose of him, well, that triggers Kawarik. Now, what does this do for episode 2? I don't know, because you don't really see Kawarik fight much in Eulogy for a Saint, and the Reputations is where you actually see what triggered Kawarik. Not only did they try to dispose of him, but it took the heir of the Covenant. It took Kawarik telling the heir of the Covenant, yo, these people did illegal activities on me, they tried to dispose of me, and when Ross looked into it, the people who committed these crimes on Kawarik are dead. They're long gone. So Kawarik's anger is justified, which is why at the very beginning of episode 2, you see him with Strays. Now, I want to say, in the Reputation, Kawarik was pretty much almost dead. So how did Strays heal him? Unknown. That is never explained. Anyways, let's move on. So this segment is going to be very short, but prior to episode 2 start, Violet was investigating Chaos Gates with Pavel. They find information about Chaos Gates, and of course they learn some of the Chaos Gates, features or traits, habits. After Pavel leaves, Violet accidentally enters a Chaos Gate, by total accident, by the way. He totally didn't see a hot woman on the other side and just leaped in. Right, so Violet lands in Britannia. He learns very quickly about the Archdemon War, albeit not much. He lands with the Phantom CIC, learns some of their information because they teach him about the Chaos Gate and all that stuff. And then when a Chaos Gate opens back to Sidonia, they just kick him back in Sidonia. And when that happens, Lilius immediately tells Violet, yo, I have a job for you. So, poor Violet, I guess. Since I briefly mentioned Visitor from Perland, I might as well mention Blood and Roses. Blood and Roses basically happens as episode 2 is starting up. Sid and Dingo leave to Sidonia. You get the context of why they left, and I guess Taste has his own side story. Now, I do want to mention one quick thing about Blood and Roses. This happens about the moon. Ludwig's event, the moon is going crazy. And then after episode 2, we get an event called a single flame engulfing the moon. I don't know what it is, but the moon seems to be doing some stupid stuff. And I'm just wondering, where is the heir of the moon? What is Ludwig doing? Brother, the moon is your forte. Your goddess is the goddess of the moon. Anyways, Blood and Roses, good event. You see Charles wearing a cosplay, learns Tenebria's backstory, and then he decides, yep, I'ma visit Sidonia. You really thought episode 2 starts? No. There is so much stuff to cover. But this is the last thing I'll cover. So, in episode 1, Dominial Nixeed, the successor of the Nixeed clan, went to Savara, the desert area in episode 1, to cool it down because, it's getting really hot. And apparently the reason it's gotten really hot is because Nixeed's power was withering, which is really ironic because in episode 2, the flames are growing weaker, and Malicus is also growing weaker. Now, for reference, Malicus is the Spirit Lord of Flames, Sylvana is the Spirit Lord of Wind, Nixeed is the Spirit Lord of Ice, I think Rahel is the Spirit Lord... Actually, no, it's not Rahel. Someone was the Spirit Lord of Darkness, but no one really talks about him. And then there's Destina, the Spirit Lord of Light. That aside, Savara got hot because Nixeed's power was dwindling. And then over time, you realize now it's Malicus's turn. I don't think they ever touch on the other Spirit Lords. So this is what we have to work with. So Dominial Nixeed goes to Nixeed's sanctum, finds out it's not strays causing Nixeed to lose power. I think it was Tenebria, which doesn't make sense. Why is Tenebria there in the first place? I know the Archdemon fights anyone who uses the Spirit Lord's power, so it makes sense why Tenebria hates the Spirit Lords, but the Archdemon isn't a thing anymore. Diche isn't there. Hell, Illyros, Tenebria's god, no longer has any beef with Diche, so Nixeed's sanctum kinda loses its meaning over time, but it is the prelude to episode 2, so I have to involve it. Oh my god. I never thought we'd actually make it to episode 2. Oh boy, what was even the purpose of this video anymore? Right, so episode 2 begins. Zerato calls Ross. Destina says she can't hear Malicus's voice anymore, or his voice is getting dimmer, which is the same phenomenon that happened with Nixeed. So they visit Sidonia and then realize, there are actually many problems occurring in Sidonia all at once. Violet is there, as shown in the introduction. Luluka is there. Now, Violet's immediate findings is that Chaos Gates are opening, dropping unknown, and instead of being a two-way form of travel, the Chaos Gates just disappear, and every time they disappear, they just hurt the land more and more, which ties us back to episode 1. Every time Diche resets the world, she can't really recover the edges that were damaged by the Archdemon. So this is a similar phenomenon. Strays summoning these Chaos Gates is enough to damage the world permanently. Actually, I don't know if that damage is permanent, but by the looks of it, it is. So this brings us to our first confrontation, which is against Magnar of the Flames, the spirits residing in the Flame Spirit Altar. So basically, since Malicus's power is dwindling, he lost control over Magnar, and Magnar is quick to betray. So in order to calm down Magnar and bring him back into Malicus's control, you have to beat him up. I don't know where is the logic, so I'll just assume there is no logic. When you kill a spirit, it just comes back, regenerates. I don't know. Anyways, so prior to this boss battle, you see a conversation between Khawana and Great Chief Khawazu. Khawana asks Khawazu, does he even know what's happening in the current situation? Unknowns are shown left and right. People and monster are getting more aggressive. Khawazu says, yes, I am very well aware. And he deployed Stray's Star Gaze. I forgot what its name is. I will double check that very soon. But basically, he deployed something that Strays gave him, and that thing rouses people's anger, rouses people's negative emotions. So I assume it's created using Fastus's power. Khawana asks, hey, have you been keeping up with the Flame Spirit altar? When was the last time you visited Malicus? Now, Khawazu says he's been pretty busy, so he hasn't been able to visit Malicus. So, pretty much, what's happening is, they pulled the rug under Khawazu. Not only did he deploy the Comet Gaze, but Malicus is dying. Well, since word is spreading that Malicus's power is weakening, eventually he'll die. As evident with Magnar going on a complete rampage. Prior to the party's reception, what happened in Meldrick is Strays gave Khawazu a Comet's Eye, saying that this will fix all your problems. Now, initially, Khawazu believed him because all the unknown swirling around Meldrick didn't attack Meldrick. That holds true, but what the Comet's Eye actually does is it fosters people's negative emotions, and once they hit that upper limit, they start going completely feral is what's happening, really. So anyways, since Malicus is weakening, the people of Meldrick no longer have a reason to be united. In the first place, they united because they worshipped Malicus, they feared Malicus. So the people of the Mur united. I'll elaborate more on the people of the Mur later, but for the time being, all you need to know is Khawazu basically got the oath of the Great Chief, and that oath is meaningless now that Malicus is dying. So the tribes of the Mur have once again split off, and as I said, the Comet's Eye basically fosters people's negative emotions. So once those negative emotions reach the limit, these people gone crazy, which is why the party is attacked as soon as they arrive in Meldrick. Now, how is Malicus dying? Well, apparently Kawarrick snuck into the temple of Malicus, dropped an ice essence, which, what is an ice essence? Did he extract it from Nixid himself? I don't know. Which, if he did extract it from Nixid himself, that would make sense. But it also wouldn't, because in the Nixid Sanctum, we see that Tenebria is there, which makes no sense why Tenebria would be there if Kawarrick is the one who extracted the ice essence. Once again, Nixid Sanctum, it's losing all its meaning. So yeah, Kawarrick drops ice essence in the temple, and boom. People mad, or Malicus dying. Woo, nice. So, where does the story go from here? Well, Malicus is dying, and Destina sits down, performs some healing arts. She uses all her remaining power to basically slow down Malicus's death. She's not able to fully close his wounds, if he has wounds in the first place. So yeah, Khawanu and Khawazu discuss, and they say there is a way to heal Malicus. You need to bring something called the Twilight Ember. Now this Twilight Ember was bestowed from Malicus, and I assume that the Twilight Ember has the same properties as the Ice Essence. And this Ice Essence was extracted directly from Nixid himself. So in that case, the theory that Kawarrick extracted the Ice Essence from Nixid himself, that theory checks out. What doesn't check out is, why is Tenebria there? I don't know, Nixid Sanctum is just built less. So yeah, the Twilight Ember, the reason it existed in the first place was because when Aachen was beginning to form, before it became the Iron Blood Fortress, they couldn't smelt any of their ore, and bringing their ore to Meldrick was just impossible. So what Malicus did is he created the Twilight Ember, gave it to the people of Aachen, and the people of Aachen used the Twilight Ember to cook their ores. Now, of course, there are a million furnaces in Aachen, but that's the thing. They have the Twilight Ember, so the party decides, let's go give a quick visit for Aachen and obtain that Twilight Ember, hoping that this might recover Malicus's power, since, you know, it's created by Malicus himself, so I don't know, there is no logic, to be honest. Now, I did say I'll elaborate more on the people of the Mur, so this is their segment, I guess. Now, the people of the Mur are basically comprised of 4 tribes. 3 tribes worship Malicus, the 4th one worships Malicus and the stars. Now, this 4th tribe didn't exactly oppose Malicus, but they had conflict with the 3 tribes. Basically, their conflict is they don't want to live so close to Malicus because, as you can see, Meldrick is just a stone, hot, harsh area, and these people wanted to live in a more cool grassland area. So, honestly, the fact they disputed and split off is just weird to me. It's I don't know, the religious reason maybe? Anyways, so Kawazu, after the party leaves, he explores that 4th area, that 4th tribe, helps them with their problem, and yeah, he becomes the great chief of the Mur, finally uniting them at long last. Now, I do want to comment that the people of the Mur are probably people born between the Chandra Empire or the Chandra Temple and Meldrick. If you don't know what the Chandra Temple is, it's basically that area you explore in Ancient Inheritance. So that's a small piece of lore there. So now we enter Strayz's character a little bit. Apparently, the moment he killed Rekos, Strayz was in disbelief. He thought God was immortal, but apparently not. So now Rekos' specter, whatever that is, apparently it came into existence the moment Strayz killed Rekos. So although Rekos is dead, his existence is somehow within Strayz. I don't know if that makes sense to you, but it does to me. Because I'm crazy and I talk to my demons 24/7. In all seriousness, what probably happened when Strayz killed Rekos is that Fastus absorbed Rekos and just, I don't know, the remains of Rekos' powers now live within Strayz. Now, whether that means Strayz is on equal footing with Ross or equal footing with anyone else, it's undeniable that Fastus was the reason Rekos died in the first place, you know, because a human can't just kill a god with a regular sword. Anyways, I refrained from mentioning this because it's mentioned really early, this whole talk about the Aethra gods, Lunaris, Orbis, Dice, Illyros. Now, I want to say that in my previous lore videos, I tried to cover them as much as I could, and of course, I was stumped many times. Now, can you care to guess where to find this lore information? It's on a Korean stove post that doesn't exist anymore. Matter of fact, when Strayz or Fastus mentions Lunaris, Dice, and Illyros, he forgets the 4th god, and apparently the 4th god was never mentioned anywhere. Not in a side story, nowhere, absolutely nowhere. So we have no way of confirming whether the 4th god is canon or not. Again, this is all on a Korean stove post released when the game released, and apparently the link to that post no longer works. Amazing lore. Fucking amazing. Anyways, moving on. Now, this has less to do about episode 2, but I must mention this because if I don't mention it, everyone will be confused. You see, there were 2 gods, one dark and one light. I think the dark one was named Nihilum, and I honestly forgot what the hell the light one was. I think its name was Prima. So basically, this dark god versus the light god were clashing, and honestly, all we know is that the dark god wants to kill the light god. Again, there is no good, there is no bad. We just assume that the dark is bad because it wants to kill light. 10 out of 10 story, honestly. So, since they were on equal footing, I can't even confirm that, Nihilum, the dark god, decides to form the Dark Nebula. Now, the Dark Nebula has multiple gods. I think there's like Nox, Varus, whatever their names is. We're only focused on Fastus right now. So Fastus was one of the gods of the Dark Nebula. Now before I continue about Fastus, let's look at what happened to Prima. So basically when Prima was about to fall, she created Aethra, and then Aethra split into 4 different gods, if that makes sense to you. And these 4 gods are Orbis, Dice, Iliros, and Lunaris. Now, Iliros is the god of the sun, I think. Dice, goddess of life. Iliros, oh yeah, I already mentioned Iliros. Orbis, I honestly forgot what the hell Orbis was. And Lunaris was the goddess of the moon. Notice how I mentioned Lunaris. You know, her heir, Ludwig, does nothing. Anyways, so Fastus sent a whole ass comet, blew up, entirely decimated Orbis. Dice grabbed Orbis's corpse and created the very world we live on, Orbis. And apparently what happened is Prima was about to die, or she did die, and she got shattered into multiple pieces. Now, these pieces are called the Prima shards. Now, I don't know what happened to Nihilum, but Fastus and the Dark Nebula were sent out to go destroy these Prima stars, because they know as long as these stars remain intact, or, you know, as long as they exist, they will cause problems later. Now, are we ever gonna see this later? Probably not. I'm gonna be for real with you. Episode 3 and episode 4 do nothing to mention that. So Fastus went to Rekos, kills Rekos. It's more like Strays kills Rekos, but Rekos was one of the gods of flight. So there was probably a Prima star in Rekos, and once that was eliminated, they moved on to Orbis. Now, before Fastus's arrival in Orbis, he tricks Iliros into saying, hey, Dice is distracted by Orbis. She's not doing anything in the Celestial War because she's just mourning for Orbis, I guess. Which creates episode 1. Iliros suddenly is hypnotized. I don't know how you even begin to hypnotize a god, but he's suddenly hypnotized and he wants to destroy the sanctuary, destroy Orbis. And fun fact, the Prima star, that's in the sanctuary. That's what the archdemon wants to destroy. And I'm like, goddamn, this piece of floor right here completely trivializes episode 1. The whole purpose of episode 1 was the whole world resetting. If Frost dies, this world dies, all that stuff. Turns out, nope. The whole objective was to protect the Prima star. And where do you find this? Nowhere. It's on a Korean blog post that the link doesn't work anymore. Honestly, Smilegate, I hate you. And now we enter the Wyvern God's territory, Aachen. Furious is the city lord of Aachen, and his daughter Ceres is the administrator of Aachen. Now, I would talk about the events that happen in Aachen, but I actually feel like we should talk about Aachen's lore. Now, Solayu Forest, or rather the continent of Solayu, now that area is where the previous king of Britannia fled to, La Mer, whatever his name was. Now, La Mer, whatever he was, gave birth to Charlotte and all that stuff. Now, Charlotte is the queen of Solayu. But before Charlotte was born, before the 7th Archdemon War, what happened is some people from Solayu went all the way to Sidonia, alright? And then they went to Aachen seeking opportunities. Now, this place wasn't called Aachen yet, okay? So what happened is they mined, they found a lot of ore, and apparently there was some infighting between the natives and the Solayu people, which is why they call the place the Fortress of Blood and Iron, is because not only did they have a lot of iron, but a lot of people were killed to build this place. So anyways, this correlates back to the story of Meldrick, where they had no way of smelting this ore. So they went to Meldrick, And Meldrick gave them the Twilight Ember, and the Twilight Ember is what was used to smelt all that ore to build up Aachen, the city we know of. Now, Aachen itself couldn't just prosper just like that. Matter of fact, as it started to prosper, Meldrick and Aachen had a good relation. But as time went on and as these relationships soured up, Furious decided, you know what, I'ma sell the Twilight Ember to whoever is willing to pay for it. Because again, the Twilight Ember wasn't exactly needed anymore, and it's just there. It was like a token of friendship between Meldrick and Aachen, but once again, as that relationship soured up, people stopped caring. So yeah, Furious sold it to Witchaven because they showed great interest in researching that. Apparently in that exchange, somewhere along the lines, Furious developed rope that constrains people from Witchaven. I don't know how he even developed this technology. Apparently, so to summarize, Aachen and Meldrick, sour relationship. Aachen, Perland, very aggressive relationship. Aachen, Witchaven, purely a business relationship. So we already established that the Twilight Ember has been sold, but there are more events that happen in the background. You see, prior to Furious's acquisition of his position before he became City Lord, what happened is the previous City Lord was actually trading with Perland. However, the tradings were very shady. You see, Perland actually supplies majority of the food and clothes you see in Aachen. Now, Aachen was really known for its weapons and its armor. Meldrick doesn't really take any interest in those things. So, the majority of the trade was done with Perland. Now, Perland themselves were shady, okay? To summarize, the old City Lord gave too much power to the Perland City Lords. As long as he sits comfortably, eats whatever he wants. Now, Furious himself was the commander at the time, and Furious noticed, how is Aachen's military falling when the military is the pride of Aachen? So Furious exposes Aachen's conspiracy theory, and boom, he's City Lord. And this just confirms that Aachen is not a monarchy, it's a democracy, actually. This is a cool little detail. Apparently the people of Aachen are named Aachen-Tees. Don't you just love casual racism? You know, I kinda already forgot that the main focus was on Malicus. Let's go back to what's actually happening in the story. So for some reason, Violet and Luluca split off from the main party prior to the Cowrick boss fight. Violet and Luluca themselves went to Aachen. They wanted to deliver a secret letter from Pavel to Cerise. And Cerise as well has a letter for Pavel. Now, for some reason, Lilius cracks down on Pavel, and not much is shown, but Lilius is telling Pavel to stop exchanging letters with Cerise. Now, Cerise was actually a student who studied in Perland before the relations were very sour, and this is a cool detail because apparently Furious sent Cerise there to learn, and you know, he wants her to be beneficial to Aachen. If you want to know how Cerise meets Pavel, you should probably check the Christmas event, the one with Fairy Tale Tenebria on it. Anyways, so as the main party enters Aachen, Archie, being the smartest man alive, decides to eat food that's just laid there. So guards catch him, call him a thief, and they bring him to Furious. Furious decrees Archie with death. I guess they're just gonna shave his hair and then overwork him to death? Question mark. Again, I really wish the story went there, but no. Luluca and Violet step in, save him, and yeah, the main party tell Violet and Luluca that they're here for the Twilight Ember. And once they get the Twilight Ember, they're leaving. And Violet and Luluca say, oh, we're actually here to meet up with Cerise. If we meet her, we'll also go towards Perland. So, you know, checks out. We'll meet later. So unfortunately, Cerise and Violet's meeting doesn't go according to plan. It was very brief. Luluka wants information on strays, and she isn't really quite able to get a grasp on what strays wants from this world. Now, Luluka comments that the comet eyes are something out of this world. She doesn't sense any spirit's power in it. It's just something completely foreign, etc. Now, apparently Cerise sent a guy called Varen to research these comet's eyes and gather information, because this is definitely associated with the Black Knight, or so Cerise calls him. The Black Knight, in this case, is strays. So Lilibet catches that piece of information, she kills Varen, and she waits at Varen's house. She wants Violet and Luluka to come in, and then Violet says the password, "Do you want to be a snow slime?" Probably a snowman reference. I don't know why the authors put it there, but sure, go ahead. So Violet and Luluka notice, shit, there are scissors in the dark. So they just run away, and then Luluka figures out, oh, that's Lilibet. That's Lilibet. She's from my world, from Rekos. So after failing to kill Cerise, after failing to kill Violet and Luluka, Lilibet goes out there to kill the heir of the Covenant. Also fails. I don't know how Ross couldn't just eliminate her, but I guess he's becoming more and more human as he goes along. So he's losing his powers gradually. Thankfully, Cerise ends up saving Ross. You know, this has to be pretty frustrating for Lilibet, because she tries to kill so many people and she fails so many times. The only person she can kill is just an NPC. Furious, being a spectator on the side, wasn't gonna have it. So as soon as Lilibet got close to killing Cerise, Furious mobilized the army and shot at Lilibet, kicking her out of Aachen. He's just had enough of it. He understood that Cerise was correct and that Lilibet was just toying around in Aachen, doing as she pleases. And again, Furious knows that. He doesn't want to keep his head low. So eventually, yep, he's had it. If they're gonna kill his only daughter, he might as well fight back. Now, I do want to comment a few things before we enter Witchaven, which is Hawazu and Furious's character development. Hawazu goes through an interesting character development where the moment you meet him, he's not exactly acting as a city lord. He doesn't act in a manner befitting of his status being the great chief, and he's pretty pessimistic. He still is, but at the very least he's hopeful after episode 2, or at least as episode 2 goes on, you actually hear remarks from Hawazu that perhaps not all hope is lost with Meldrick and the world. Furious goes through a reverse character development in that he starts out as a very confident man, very logical, very rational, but due to Strays bopping the Aachen army, Furious was just forced to put down his head and obey all of Lilibet and Strays' wishes, which once again, as soon as Lilibet tries to kill Cerise, Furious has just had it and mobilized the army against them. So really, really neat, all this stuff. And now we enter Witchaven. Honestly, this is a breath of fresh air. The city lord that we meet, Vivian, is actually the very first rational, logical city lord we meet. Now, Hawazu and Furious, you can argue that their circumstances is what led to them, being less than ideal people to meet. But Vivian, right off the bat, as soon as the party meets them, she is on board with them. The party asks Vivian for the Twilight Ember, and she complies and gives them the Twilight Ember. That easy. Except I wish it was that easy, because first of all, it takes some time for the party to meet Vivian. Can you guess Vivian's only one flaw? Her people. Now, her people, or rather, the people of Witchaven, have a very elitist hierarchy in that two things determine your worth. First, your bloodline. You must come from a very prestigious family to be respected. And two, your magic. If you can prove that you are a master in your craft, then you will command some degree of respect. Obviously, you need both if you want full supremacy, but that just doesn't work out for Vivian, as it seems that some people have mixed feelings for her promotion as City Lord. Now, I do want to comment a few things, which is as soon as Malicus fell weaker, or rather, this could have been traced all the way back to Nixide. As soon as one of the spirit lords were weakened, Vivienne imposed a ban on summons. If you don't know what summons are, they are pretty much familiars. And Witchhaven is the land of witches, magics, wizards, blah blah blah, insert typical fantasy isekai plot in there. So pretty much, yeah, that ban causes the people to be very frustrated because they've spent years honing this craft. You can't just ban something they've always done, which inspires a black market, which inspires in opposition, and thanks to the Comet's Eye, that feeling of anger, that feeling of repression is multiplied, and so they try to overthrow Vivienne. Now, there are a couple of wild cards in this situation. I know one viewer in particular will be triggered by the word wild cards, but I will say it anyways. Now, this wild card being Cowric. Cowric is very interesting here. He's the one who brought the Comet's Eyes into Cydonia. He's the guy who, kinda works hand to hand with Strays, but then he pulls a weird card, a weird gimmick in Witchhaven, in that he kills some of the opposition and some of the unknown swirling around Witchhaven. Which, why would you do that? I thought you were a villain. Like, what, are you changing leaves? Of course not. As soon as Cowric meets Vivienne, turns out they've been separated at a very young age and that they were childhood friends, childhood sweethearts. I cannot comment. But point is, Cowric isn't an enemy to Witchhaven, but for some reason he's an enemy to the world. Which, explain that, I guess. Vivienne tells Cowric she doesn't want to see him ever again, to which Cowric agrees. Yep, I just came here for sightseeing, nostalgia even. So he just leaves Witchhaven, after killing a lot of the unknowns and after killing the opposition of Vivienne. Of course, Vivienne takes note of that later. She feels a little guilty that she didn't try to reason with Cowric. She didn't try to, pull him back to joining Witchhaven, which we will get into that later. Focusing more on Ross and his bunch, they successfully acquire the Twilight Ember from Vivienne. Once again, Vivienne is just a very casual, chill person. So she understands that if the Spirit Lord fall, the world falls. Okay? That's really it. So Mercedes takes the Twilight Ember and makes a beeline all the way to Meldrick. The reason Ross continues is that he realizes, hold on a moment, Strays is causing a lot of problems. This man better not go unchecked. Which, sure, if you think you can take down Strays as a human, up to you, Ross. So Mercedes makes it back all the way to Meldrick, and she realizes, oh shit, I can't drop the Twilight Ember to Malicus because it's too hot. And Hawazu as well. And that's where Dingo comes in. Man comes with the glove that Malicus gave him, and he turned it into an oven. Amazing. A 10 out of 10 writing, to be honest. So he puts the Twilight Ember in the oven, or rather, I don't know how, he just grabs it and puts his hand in literal lava, and that heals Malicus. The Spirit Lords never talked about ever again. And now we enter Pearland, Violet's hometown. Hometown, home city, home village, call it whatever you want to call it. Apparently, according to the lore, Pearland was many small cities and villages and whatever the fuck that fused into one, and then they built a shit ton of walls around them, and boom, that's how it got its name as the Fortress City. And honestly, it sounds like America. To your left, you have Florida. To your right, you have whatever the hell Detroit is, and if you walk in the middle, you're in Ohio. Bad place to be in. So once again, we have Violet, Luluka split as their own group, Ross split by himself. Mercedes is all the way back in Meldrick during this chapter, so luckily we don't have to talk about her. Honestly, there's little to talk about Ross. Brother shows up, Lilius finds him, and that's pretty much it. She starts shooting at him. Apparently she approached Strays, and Strays often gets approached with, opposition. Furious, he went with his army, got bonked. Hawazu tried to oppose Strays, got bonked for it. I forgot what Vivienne did. But Lilius is just a maniac. She said, I'll kill a part of my army and you just ignore us. 10 out of 10. She brings the comet's eye to Perland, or rather, they never really explicitly say it, but apparently another noble brought the comet's eye. I really have no idea how to summarize this part of the story. But point is, there is a comet's eye in Perland, and yeah, Lilius, straight up an enemy. Now, Violet's group, he's trying to explore conspiracy theories. He's noticing that the number of Perland raiders is going down and down, and he gets checkmated. Not really checkmated, but he gets questioned by Lilius, telling him to drop Cerese's letter. And then Violet, like the madman he is, 1-2 jukes Lilius by giving her the execution papers of Archie. Honestly, this chapter is so heavy dialogue based. I really liked Pavel. I really liked everyone, excluding Lilius. Everyone was just well handled during this chapter. You know, it's like I didn't say this enough times. I dislike Lilius. I think Lilius makes Ervelyn look like a good character. She is not ambitious. I mean, she is ambitious, but we have ambitious Tywin for that. She is not a conqueror. Even though her side story makes her look like a smart character, she is by far the dumbest character, hands down. So usually when there is a plot, there's good side, and then there is evil side. This is why I think Nihilim's war with Prima was fine. Orbis versus Fastus. Orbis fell, and now the other allies of Orbis want to battle Fastus. That's simple. Well, what if there was a wild card out there? You know, the wild card in this situation is Cowric. That slot has already been filled up. Lilius isn't good. She's bad, but she's not with the villains. Of course, I forgot the Epic 7 formula. They just have to add a secondary villain for some reason. So the thing that bothers me about Lilius is Strays wants bloodshed. Otherwise, he wouldn't kill as many people as he killed. Lilius, she checkmated herself by killing her own Perland raiders. And apparently she didn't kill just any Perland raiders. She killed the ones that specifically are allies with Pavel and Violet. So when you think about it, the people most loyal to Lilius were killed. And all the other factions that are with Lilius are no longer her own independent team, which becomes a problem later for her. I don't know how she didn't see it coming. Had she just said, yes, let's team up with the other factions to take down the God Killer, maybe, just maybe she could have salvaged the situation. But Lilius, start to finish, her character is very contradictory. So she rushes Pavel and Ross with Cowric and her army and Lilibet. Lilibet deeply injures Pavel. Violet and Luluca take Pavel with them and go into hiding, but I think Ross gets caught in restraint. And now we enter Aakon's exile colony with the joke of a character that is Elena. Now before we enter into Elena, we should talk about the comet's gaze. So there are comet's eyes laid around in every city. Now, every comet's eye, it's an eye of course, so it looks straight to one place. That place being the Aakon exile colony. Now, I don't know why it's the Aakon exile colony, but if I had to make a guess, it's probably because it's at the center of Sidonia as a whole. Now, let's talk about the Aakon exile colony. Now, if it wasn't obvious, all the exiles are sent to the Aakon exile colony, where you basically live in poor living conditions and you're basically just gonna work for labor for the rest of your life. If you're a criminal, you're sent to the Aakon exile colony. That's pretty much it. Now, let's talk about the joke of a character that is Elena. She is the high priestess of the Chandra Temple. Now, the Chandra Temple are people who worship the stars, and if you knew, or if you caught the reference, Prima was once the primordial god of the stars. So you could say that Elena worships this Prima star, Now, I don't know how much a religion covers the entire lore of the game, and honestly, it's too big a brain for me to comprehend. What I do know, however, is that there is a Chaos Star, but we will cover the Chaos Star later, because there is a certain Chaos group somewhere. Now, Elena promises to compensate people. She promises to do this and that once they're in Constella, which, I don't know about you, but I've never seen a priestess, much less a prophet, lie, deceive people, and when you do make it to Constella, she does nothing. I'm afraid she just exists, apparently. She's a priestess in name. That's pretty much it. Now, on the other hand, we have Ray. Ray is a good character. I really like Ray. Ray is a doctor from the Damus family, and the Damus family is basically a noble family from Aachen. So, Ray, good. Elena, bad. So, Lilibet restrained Ross using shackles from Rekos. Apparently these shackles, rope, whatever it is, constrains something, or rather restricts divine. Now, you might be wondering, what do you mean restricts divine? Well, you see, it doesn't work on humans, but it doesn't work on higher gods either. It just works on something that is the creation of a god or a lower god. Now, I don't know about you, Chief, but that seems like a very, very convenient plot device there. You know, you, the viewer, the reader, if you played Epic 7, which I hope you played past episode 1 when watching this video. Hell, I hope you finished episode 2 when watching this video, because it's a recap. I'm not here to spoil people, but this kinda is a spoiler video. Can you recall what the episode 1 plot is? Can you recall why we resolved it or how we resolved it? We banished DJ. Why did we banish DJ? It's so that we never have any Archdemon wars ever again. And can you guess what happened when DJ got banished? Ross lost majority of his powers because he's converting into a human. These shackles are restraining the human Ross. He has some divinity left in him, I guess, but technically speaking, many times during episode 2, Ross fails time and time again. Why? Because he's converting into a human. Hell, the moment you enter Meldrick, Ross almost faints over how hot it is. One battle, I swear, it took one battle, and Ross was already gonna die early in episode 2. And you're telling me these shackles work on him? Fucking... it just gives me a headache, man. Ross, Lilius, these characters, man. Anyways, Cowrick comes in, checks on the shackles, and then the wild card he is, he puts something in Ross. I don't want to say what that thing is because it's gonna come relevant very soon. Now, if they really wanted to speedrun the plot here, they would have just made Strays take a Chaos Gate and then he would just plop at Ross. Now, I just want to say, apparently there's a Chaos Star, and that thing allows you to control Chaos Gates, so the Chaos God is real. Because apparently every god is a star now. I didn't know astrology was here, but I guess every god is a goddamn star. But I guess from the very start we should have expected it, since Prima is the primordial god of stars. And Rekos is technically a star god or some... I don't know. I'm starting to lose my shit. Rowana, when she uses her S3, she says, "May the holy light free you from despair." So I'm guessing Rekos is a god of light. Anyways, point is, the Chaos Gates don't work because for some reason the Chaos Star isn't working. Question marks all around, honestly. Hearing that Strays is marching towards Ross, Furious mobilizes the entire Aachen army. For the very first time, you see the Aachen exile colony work in unison with the main Aachen army. For once, there is something that unites Aachen as a whole. You have Violet, Pavel, Ray, Lena. Okay, Lena isn't that present, but you have Elena. You have people from different races. Hell, even Luluka from another world, all uniting just to stop Strays. Now their main goal is to 1. Free Ross before Strays arrives, and 2. Hopefully take down Lilibet, because if they can take down Lilibet, boom, it should be easier to take down Strays.
The time has come to blight the world with horror. Eternal rest for all.
So although the party freed Ross, beat Lilibet, it did not make the fight easier. And unfortunately, it was at this point of the story that Strays pulled Leluka to his galaxy cape. What happens next? I'll probably make a part 2. This video has gone far too long. I am starting to lose my sanity. See you at part 2.